Hi everybody, I hope you're well. This is going to be a really lazy video being filmed on a Saturday, probably being put out on a Tuesday. I don't know when, it could be weeks from now. Long story short, I had an article pop up in my feed. I think it's more of a bad take than a hot take. It just seems like condensed salt. So we'll get into it, have a read, see what people think, start a conversation. So, got a CardMarket article. So, not nobody's. YGO hot takes, role players, rogue players, not role players. That's a different thing. RPGs, whatever. I am definitely a one of them. So, gonna try and keep my bias aside, and we'll have a look. So, starting paragraph, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are all different, but generally fall into some category or archetype. There are meta players, casuals, and scrubs, okay? But it seems the one most people identify with is the label of rogue player. A few of them pride themselves on it and claim an air of superiority. It is time to stop with this nonsense. Alright, so archetypes, they might play archetypes, but I don't think we as a people are archetypes. Yeah, there's meta players, so like tier 0, 1, 2, you know, you can even go to tier 3, it depends on representation. It's not a marker of like, well, it is a marker of a dex power level, but you do get edge cases. So for example, Bird Up or Tri Brigade, absolutely nothing in the TCG on release. Then the OCG started getting results, people figured it out there, and suddenly the deck popped off because we found out how to play it. That ended up a meta deck for some time. You're generally looking at representation when you're talking about tiers. Casual, I'm counting that as, you know, people who are just chilling, doing the thing, maybe have found their own little pocket meta with the friends. And then scrubs is it's just throwing salt. So most people identify the label of rogue player. I haven't found that. There's a lot of meta players I know. There's a mix. There's super casuals that have had like locals all the way up to playing tier 0 to a Shizu. And a few of them pride themselves on it and claim an air of superiority. That must be a couple, dude, because like I've never had that kind of like meta sheep mentality, unless someone's coming back from like 20 years ago, and thinks it's just T set and pass, and then they're like, that's an accessibility issue. They don't actually understand it, and it's time to stop with this nonsense. Okay, so what's a rogue player? In case you don't know, the concept of a rogue player is that someone who doesn't play competitive deck and instead focuses on more unknown off-meta archetypes. It is off-meta. That is not to say rogue doesn't top. We've had... Oh, what have we had recently? I mean, your rogue picks right now pretty numerous just because of the way the format is, and if you're not tier Shizu, you're not playing pretty much. You've got blue unders, but either way, rogue decks have topped in the past. I'm pretty sure we've had rogue get to pretty high places at events. It's just not the case that they're not competitive at all. You are hedging your bets to play something off meta to counter the meta specifically. There's obviously nothing wrong with playing a rogue deck per se. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing any deck. You get bad environments for certain decks. Like, if you want to play completely casual, you probably want to play with a few friends who, like, it's not just become an arms race of building into your own meta. If you somehow manage to find a really even spread, then great. You're free to play whatever you want and enjoy the game in any way you desire. I think most people agree with this sentiment. I mean, yeah. Even if you're the sweatiest try-hard meta-only player, like, sure, it's a decision which I'll get onto later. You will still enjoy playing something out there every once in a while. Sure, Ishizu Telements is really cool, fun, and strong deck, but who doesn't enjoy summoning Scareclaw Reichheart or Mathmech Circular from time to time? I have no idea how strong Scareclaw are, and I am totally biased towards Mathmech. They were the third best deck for a hot minute there, until we stepped into Graveyard Disruption just being insane. In my opinion, that's probably tier 3. It's pretty strong. The serious end boards. Well, they look mid, but they do an awful lot. So, yeah, again, defining it is difficult. It's not tier 3 right now just because of circumstance, but could come back around. Now, here's where we need to start discussing tiers. Players group decks into tiers based on their dominance in a given format. That's representation in Top Cut. Most certainly, the best decks of a format are part of Tier 1. Tier 2 decks, while not as dominant, will still show up consistently in Top Cuts. Okay, there we go. Rogue decks are a bit of a more vague term, however. Some people understand them as those decks that aren't really consistent, but still have the potential to top and even win events. Yes, okay, we got a half-decent definition that just wasn't bait. Some other people simply call any non-meta deck rogue, like Neos or Evil Eye. Right, Neo, again, you're looking at decks that may not even be in the conversation. I'm not even too sure where Neos and Evil Eye are up to. I've not heard a lot about them. Evil Eye is pretty sick. Don't know enough about Neos. Evil Eye is pretty sick and fun, but it's not... I wouldn't take it to an event. I'd take it to locals and have a good time. And then these are the captions that seem to be the blatant salt or like some kind of bait. Sure, they have their appeal, but honestly, you're fighting a losing battle. Like, depends. There's rogue decks that specifically hedge against meta. Like, Stun has never really, as far as I'm aware, been considered like tier 1 contention, but because it's got that many tools to combat typical high power things like Graveyard or, you know, like skill draining them or cutting off from special summoning, things that a lot of strong decks do. Stun back in the day was pretty rogue and it had its moments. Not sure about its top cut ones. Funnily enough, I've walked into this like having only skim read the article before, and my mind's going a little bit blank, but they're out there. Now there's a very clear intersection between rogue decks and budget players. Since these decks are weaker than meta decks, they most commonly carry a much lower price tag, with certain exceptions. Yeah, right. Build like a full power Dark Magician deck. It's not about the price. And also, like, look at Moz's dinos. He's always just like infusing them with the most expensive engines going to kind of try and keep them ticking, because he really enjoys the deck. There's a whole world out there looking for ways to squeeze every last cent for the best results. This is true, and that would probably make for a great article, huh? Since most people can't afford to drop between 200 and 800 every 3 months on it when a new meta deck comes out, these budget players, And since most people can't afford to drop between 200 and 800 every 3 months when a new meta deck comes out, these budget players make up the majority of the player base. Thus, most players are rogue players. A problem arises only when a rogue player becomes elitist. Like, What? So people roll their eyes at having to deal with Mill 20 Chainlink 40. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, sometimes meta decks have such a lock on a situation that, like, you go in expecting it, but I can see some people after a long ass day, particularly at a competitive event, just being like, ugh, this bullshit again. But I think it's rare when it's like people act like you're a worse player if you're playing the best deck. Especially when it's as skill intensive as it is now. Like, a Shizu tier mirror matches are solid. Necrars back in the day, absolutely ridiculous mirror matches. So let's get into Roguelitism. A common sentiment among Roguelites is the idea that only they have realised how good a certain deck or card is. Right, like, sometimes you can get people who are like, oh, I have the sauce here. I remember thinking it was hot shit that I was dangering into Curious, sending Christia, getting a Mizuki in the grave while setting up a regular zombie board with like a ding on top and then popping a Christia out so my opponent couldn't special summon. That is not to say that when I got absolutely wiped out by like an experienced Orcus pilot doing his thing, I was immediately like, oh, that's bullshit, my deck's clearly better because I'm 5,000 IQ. It's not really usually how it works. Less experienced players are probably a little bit less paint by numbers because they don't know the optimal way to play, which, you know what, it's fine, let them enjoy the shit, but I've not experienced it where it's caused an attitude problem. Right. But they probably did not really uncover the way to push Lair of Darkness into tier 1 using Catapult Turtle. Well, without the Catapult Turtle, that's plants right now. They are good Lair of Darkness. There's a lot of extremely good players testing weird synergies consistently in order to find the edge that will help them pull a YCS win. Being the only one who discovers a certain interaction or who can pilot some deck optimally is simply unlikely. Yeah, it's pretty unlikely, but again, an entire format, like the entire TCG, did not clock onto Bird Up until we saw results in the OCG. Like, there's blind spots. Everyone was like VFD Turbo with Virtual World, which, to be honest, that is a nutty floodgate, so yeah, I can see you getting tunnel visioned on that. I'm not saying it's likely. It's pretty unlikely, but, you know, Jesus, crap on people. Are you confident in your own ability as a player or the discovery of your tech? Great. The game thrives on innovation and finding small stuff out. Yeah, it does. Now put your theory into practice, play a game, go to tournaments, do well, and show the world you're on something. Cool. What if you just straight up want to throw your deck profile out there and be like, this is a cool thing, maybe I'm on something, maybe I'm not. Like, it's something else I've noticed. Everyone right now seems to be like, for the more, like, not even rogue stuff, the stuff that I'm looking into for the channel where it's just fun, because let's face it, it's Terashizu right now and that's kind of it. But for profiles, I'm seeing a lot where it's like topped locals and you're like, just put your deck out there, it's fine. Like, you don't need results behind everything. Someone can be looking for a fun Mathmech build because Mathmech just got reprints in the Trap Trick structure deck. Like, you know, that's why I was there. And it's a nice cheap deck I can just mess about with at locals or in friendlies or test, or, you know, like, sometimes you want to unwind with like a chill game. I mean, mostly I do that with Go, but I'm getting super sidetracked. So like, yeah, no, you owe the community at large nothing. If you want to play something, just play it. Just don't stick your nose in the air about it, which I haven't seen anyone do. No, you did not find the secret way to beat the meta. Deal with it. Oh, so like running, there can be only one in sword soul does absolutely dick, and having a deck that can play around it really easily. Yeah, that doesn't convert to wins. It's not a secret, and like no one I can think of is acting like it, and this is where it seems really baity. Hedging against a really strong deck with something that just basically FTKs it unless they draw the out. It's not rocket surgery. Why do you think like Dimensional Fisher just came off the ban list instead of hitting tier? Because that bitch slaps tier, like just turning off the graveyard, and it stops their disruption. So stuff like that is a real boon to decks that can play around it. For example, Danger Engines, Danger Grand Magi, like very clearly showing my appreciation for those decks, as that's what I was playing for a long time. Can play around there, can be only one. I have absolutely railed Sword Soul repeatedly because of it. I mean, yeah, it's in game 2, but clutches the game out. So, yeah. Another issue I have with some rogue players is their lack of references to measure deck's viability. How the... Right. So, what's the deck's viability? Where do you want to take it? Do you want a deck that will convert at locals? Cool. You've got a far wider array of stuff to pick from. Do you want it to convert at regionals? Bit less. You've got to put some time in. Do you want it to convert at YCS? That's probably where you're like, yeah, depends on the format. Again, off meta, pretty sure it's got into top, 64, 32, whatever. Chances are it has just over the turn. And then how far do you want to take it in those? Do you want to get top 3 at your locals? Do you want to get top 64 at your regionals? Do you want to win a YCS? Because if you want to win a YCS, you not only have to probably either have a hell of a meta call or be the best player in the room piloting a meta deck, like particularly right now. Jesus, yeah, I went on a tangent. Measuring a deck's viability depends on everything else around it. Are you in an established format? Why I immediately got sidetracked again, but I'm going down this. Why does Invoked always, I mean, maybe not anymore because it's all changed significantly, but why did it go for a giant stint of being the deck you play when no one knows how the format is going to shape up? Just because it was a simple engine and you could tailor stuff around it. It was safe. So yeah, a deck's viability can be made or broken by a format. It depends entirely on what's surrounding it, and sometimes that's a little weirder than it is now. This conversation's odd in a tier 0 format. When talking to these kinds of players, they'll brag about how strong their deck is based on wins at their local events. Yeah, we don't need to do that. Just be like, it's cool. That's fine. You should play the deck that enjoys good pairings in a given environment, be it a YCS or smaller tournaments. Kind of what I'm saying, but more like this is for you to work out. It's not like the immediate curveball that we're going to go into of, but don't think that Tindangle are going to convert. No one thinks Tindangle's going to convert. No one thinks that Cloudians are going to convert right now. This is the thing. He's talking about Rogue, and then he's jumping to archetypes that haven't had any support and like were jank even when they were receiving support. It's not the same. But don't think that Cloudians are good because you won a local event filled with Crawler and Pure Tenyi. Cool. Like, this is just pretty salty. There's a reason why people use top cut breakdowns as a measurement of which decks are the top decks. Because there's a consistency to tops, and to a format. Yeah, it's all a numbers game. If something's incredibly dominant, it will show up more. That's how we get tier 0. That isn't to say that with like perfect knowledge, you look back at Edison, really one-off format anyway, because it's based on one event. The meta there is not the meta that was in that format. Things get labbed and changed and people work it out. Depends when things are solved. But yeah, right in the moment, you are best going off that data because that's the best information you have to make decisions on. You can't really draw conclusions from smaller tournaments. That is true. There's not a data set that matches. If you play in an 8 round, it's not the same as a 4. The shorter, they often feature very different decks that you'll find in a more competitive field. So, like, yeah, at locals, you want something that absolutely ruins rogue decks. More often than not, unless you have a really competitive locals, you want something that wrecks most of the stuff in the room because you've metagamed against it. Like, that's kind of what you're going for. That's if you're doing consistent locals, and that's your main thing. Your experience may differ, and I might sound like the opposite of what I'm complaining about. A competitive elitist. Yeah. It's not even that. It's like a why even bother vibe that I'm getting from it. So, like, still, in my personal experience, the elitist stereotype fits many more rogue. Oh, I'm bad, but there's more of them, so that's worse. Which is harmful to the community at large. You're spouting this shit on a fairly large platform, you know, CardMarket, plenty of people go there. So what's more damaging? Because I haven't seen this nearly as much as it sounds. I haven't seen, like, I've had bad interactions with maybe one mid-tier player. And that's just because you have interactions with enough people, one's going to be an asshole. Which is harmful to the community at large. This kind of player is the pushy type who bothers others at locals. Like, then go to a more chill locals. I imagine you've met the type. I know I have. The kind of player who annoys new players into being spiteful and hating any decent deck. That's a toxic locals, buddy. That's what can I say? It's great to mentor and help new players, but don't belittle them into enjoying the game, whichever way they desire. Literally, dude, what you are doing is such bait. I think I've walked into it, but fuck it, it's content. Now, bear with me. There are a lot of appeal to rogue player, to being a rogue player first. Focusing on off-meta deck is a real challenge, but extremely rewarding. I played my first locals with Monarchs in 2017, right after True Draco came out. Yeah, and you know what? I still play them from time to time. In max rarity, of course. Okay, we've got some drip, whatever. That was a weird flex, but okay, out of nowhere. Alright. There's no better feeling than spending a long time workshopping a weird brew and realizing that Ferret Flames is the answer to the meta. This is literally what you've just been bitching about. Rogue decks need to innovate in order to succeed, and that's what's great about them. Yeah, you do. It's a thing. Like, do you have incidental synergies? Then you can take advantage of stuff. But that's just playing anything with like a 10,000 plus card pool or that many options. Like, the best decks in any given time might not be the best decks once you look back X amount of years later if it becomes a fan favourite format. It's a weird thing. Some non-competitive rogue decks are among the most fun strategies to play. Like, cool, it feels like a bit of a shit sandwich of an article. Like, just start out okay, give a load of shit, and then try and close off okay. The appeal of beating your opponent's Keldo Sacred Protector with your Exorcist Asophial YGO cards, man, is big. Still, you're not better than your opponent for playing a less popular deck. Neither of you are better for playing meta. You're both playing the same game. Both of you enjoy spending lots of money and suffering every time a new ban list drops. So just take it easy and have fun. I really like the take it easy and have fun. You absolutely get better players. Not better as people, which, like, I don't know if what he was going for. But you absolutely 100% get players that are just in different leagues. I've been sat against the table from players where I was just like, I can't win this, I don't have options. I've played as optimally as I think I can play, but clearly they know some shit that I don't. Like, cool, whatever. It happens, we learn, we get better, we move on. It's a goddamn hobby. And if we're talking about, like, toxicity in anything, then there's always a loud minority that kind of you just walk away from. So just take it easy and have fun. That's what I'll take away from this. Quick look at the comments, because I saw the top one and I quite liked it. We get it, Eric, you're a hero player. You're a hero for beating Blue Eyes player with your Tirashizu deck, and of course having Monarchs in max rarity, of course, pretty much. Yu-Gi-Oh's not cheap. Like, I'll go into this in a second. You must have met some seriously annoying players. Like, yeah, I don't know how you've corralled all these people that are that toxic. Does seem purposely rage-inducing. It sounds like bait. Where are such rogue players? Like, yeah, you'll get elitism in anything, but I've not seen a density of it where I've just been like, you know what? These players fucking suck. On the adverse, never had it from meta players. The people that I get it from, very occasionally, are, like I say, people who haven't played in forever, try and T-set and pass, you absolutely combo them, and then they're like, oh, this is absolute bullshit, playing meta sheep. If you're not playing meta, you can't win. And then you're sat there with like a tier 3 deck or like rogue or whatever you want to call it, and you absolutely wreck them. Say what you want, but nothing tops the feeling of beating tier with magical muskets 2.0. Yeah, I lost the sprite game, but was worth it. That's a tough one. But yeah, I've ground a little bit with like Plunder Patrol recently against Josh, who plays tier at our locals, who featured on the stream. It was a really good game. I ate shit and lost, but it was good. Yeah, so this all seems pretty much, yeah, there's elitism in any player type. This all seems much of a muchness. So once you get really into it, once you get down to it, I think there's like only a few options if you want to be competitive. You go with something off meta that's got longevity, and you make a calculated decision based on it being able to survive consecutive formats, and then you get your value out of the deck where it wins you more than its cost. That's what you hope for, because you want to go positive to an extent if you can, and I mean, you certainly want to be enjoying it, so the money you're putting into is worth it. You go for pure meta, your deck is going to get slaughtered. That's just how it's going to go. The ban list is very clearly based off what's being represented and what is doing well. And again, you hope to get more out of the deck than you have put in. It needs to have like paid for itself in fun or prizing or whatever, or wins, or however you define what you want out of it. It's just like a basic returns thing. In like that case, I have always gone for off meta because I want to be able to attempt to play competitively, but I also want some longevity out of the deck. And I want it to pay for itself, and I'm not going to commit to go into like a locals in every regional and do what is needed to make it worth it to spend an absolute fortune. Now don't get me wrong, you rogue ones, you still get picks like getting Pot of Prosperity. That's going to be good for ages. That's going to be absolutely great, and you can put that in whatever. So there's that side. Your other option is get incredibly good at a deck, lab it consistently, don't bother with paper play, go to an event, either rent it or buy it and then flip it after. That feels like the most optimal but the least fun to me because I like paper play. That's my 2 cents on what I know so far. I could be wrong on any of this. Tell me what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Hopefully this edit came around okay, and I have no idea when this video drops, so I'll just say namaste fuckers. I'll see you next time.